All right, guys. Today we're going to talk about the foundations of the U.S. government. Some of the things that the founding fathers used when they were trying to figure out just what our new government should look like. And of course, there's the democracy of ancient Greece and the Republic of Rome that we'll talk about a little bit more in class. But for this, we're going to focus on some more specific ideas, some specific documents and people that the founding fathers drew from when figuring out how our new government should look like. And we're going to start off with a very, very old document, the Magna Carta, which was signed way back in 1215 by King John of England. And this document is significant because it is the reason why England eventually became a limited monarchy, unlike so many other countries that had an absolute monarch. King John is popular, and this is the same King John of Robin Hood mythology. He was unpopular with a group of powerful individuals within England called the nobles. The nobles had a lot of wealth and power enough to challenge the king. They didn't think that he was being very good for their interests, so they rose up against him. And normally in this circumstance, when a king is exposed, they get rid of him and put a new king in place, but there really wasn't a good second choice. So instead, they make him sign this document where he basically cedes some of his power. Not all of it. He was still, the monarch still had a lot of power. But he said basically, I have to respect the rights of nobles. And for the average Englishman, this didn't really matter, but it was a first step. It was a first instance of a king sharing power. This is going to lead to more sharing power down the road, more specifically about 400 years later with the English Bill of Rights. So this was signed in 1689, which gave a whole bunch of rights. This is extended rights to all Englishmen, and this is really where the whole no taxation without representation idea came from during the American Revolution, specifically addressing this document. This again was created when King James II was very unpopular within England. They got rid of him. They contacted basically the ruling member of the Netherlands, King William of Orange, and said, hey, how would you like to be the King of England? And he was basically like, sure. They just said that he needed to sign this document first, and he was totally fine with that. So he became the King of England. The English Bill of Rights was created, greatly expanding the rights to all people, saying people could not be taxed without their consent. You had certain freedoms, especially Parliament had certain freedoms. And this really establishes the rule of law that's going to be brought into the colonies and eventually into American society. Another big event that was going on in Europe before and during the time of the American Revolution was something called the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was a movement in Europe where people, really for the first time in at least a long time, were starting to question, why do we have to listen to kings? Who gives people the right to rule? What is the best way to form a government? And a lot of good discussion was going on that caused people to rethink the way things had been done. And before we talk about some Enlightenment thinkers that really influence, here are the questions that you guys need to answer. So Lindsay, here you go. Here are the questions. So what battle prevented New England from being cut off from the other states? This is, of course, a review of the American Revolution. And what battle fought on Christmas boosted the morale of the American army? So please bring those questions in when they are due. So the first main Enlightenment thinker was a guy by the name of Montesquieu. He was a French thinker. And Montesquieu kind of looked around at history and saw that whenever one person or one group had too much power, it almost always ended poorly. They ended up abusing it, and people's rights were taken away. And to prevent that from happening, his big idea is we need to divide the power up. And he even comes up with the three branches that we use, not in the exact form that we use them, but the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Again, saying that if you divide up the powers, you never give one person too much power, there is a much, much smaller likelihood that someone is going to get enough power to be able to abuse people's rights. Okay? Next we have John Locke, who we have talked about in class a little bit. He theorized about the state of nature, What if there was no government? What would the world look like? And ultimately decided that it wouldn't look very well because people could stamp all over your rights and there isn't much you could do about it. And his big thing was that everyone had rights. You weren't given those rights. It wasn't a matter of kings gave you rights or anything gave you rights. You had them. You're born with them. And the three that he specifically pointed out was life, liberty, and property, which probably looks a little familiar. Kind of wonder where Thomas Jefferson got that idea from. So everyone has rights, and to protect those rights, people entered into a social contract with the government. No, it's not an actual contract that you signed or anything. It's just kind of an idea that in order to be protected, we give the government authority to make decisions and make rules that we then will follow. So the government, get the ability to rule. That's what they get out of the social contract, and we get protection. That's what we get out of the social contract. Now, part of that contract, just like any contract, if one person isn't fulfilling their end of the contract, then it's not good anymore. We need to fix it. So if the government isn't protecting our rights, then we as the people have the authority to take that power away from them and then give it to something else, someone else, that will then do a better job of protecting our rights. And this is a whole idea from the Declaration of Independence came from. So John Locke, hugely influential to Thomas Jefferson, hugely influential to American thought on the reasoning behind why we have the right to break free from England and to create something which will be better. But also we can look on our own history, look at the Mayflower Compact. So the Mayflower, the Pilgrims who came over, escaping religious persecution in England, they originally were supposed to go to Virginia, where Jamestown was. So their plan, they had a charter actually that said that they are supposed to go to Virginia and follow all laws present in England, but they got blown off course, and they actually landed much, much further north in modern-day Massachusetts. And there were some people who were kind of concerned, like, hey, we aren't where we were supposed to be, which basically means that original charter we have is not valid. What if some people say that I don't have to follow the rules anymore and kind of things get out of control? So to correct this, aboard the Mayflower, several members of the voyage said that we need to create something new. They established kind of a new set of rules, and they all signed it. So this was the first document created in North America and what is going to become the United States, creating a set of rules, a set of laws that people willingly followed. So they kind of saw a necessity of creating laws, and they got together and created something and willingly signed it. So it kind of establishes this precedent of Americans recognizing the rule of law, recognizing the importance of that, and willingly entering into it. So again, make sure you have those questions done. We'll talk about this on